Happy, all of you. Merry Christmas. Happy holiday season. Yes, it is Friday, December 25th, the year of our Lord 2020, depending on which one you worship. And this is Morning Combat right here. My name is Brian Campbell of CBS Sports, the guy on the other side of the screen. You know him, you love him. He probably doesn't have the same beliefs as you. He's a big, hairy bastard. His name is Luke Thomas. And Luke, this little Back to the Future, we need Jay for this, right? Where it's Christmas, but it's not actually Christmas. So I hope you had a nice Christmas. You're watching this on Christmas. We're not recording it on Christmas, but just the same, Luke, I wish well to all you and yours. Okay, my friend.
Well, I think we are. Are we in agreement with this? Or are you the guy that thinks Thanksgiving is the best holiday? Are you that guy?
It is the best holiday in the world. Although Derek Lewis of UFC fame did expose to me, how many people are now canceling Thanksgiving due to, very poor relations between the white man and others. And I understand that, but it's still my favorite, Luke. Okay, it's still my favorite.
Yeah, I mean, my family agrees with you. If you talk to my brother, I mean, he would never talk to me, much less you. But if you somehow manage to corner him on the street, he would say, yes, Thanksgiving is the best holiday. My sister thinks that, and I think my dad's the same as well. But I have to tell you, I'm a little bit more inclined towards Christmas. I love the songs. I love the imagery. I love getting out there in the cold. I love if it's snowing outside. I don't know. There's just a vibrancy in the air, BC. And I know it's mostly commercially manufactured, and shopping for people is a goddamn chore, but BC, I love it. I love what I love.
Well, I tried to find a coat covered with Jesus, but they didn't have that for the holiday season. So I got you a Santa one to wear during this, Luke. But I will say nothing but joy and well wishes and love to you and our great listeners. That's why we put together this special holiday edition, answering your questions that were delivered to us via reviews of our podcasts on Apple Podcasts. So shout out to all that stuff. Please like this video. Please subscribe. Please receive this gift from us to you. Luke, before we get into the people's questions, and hopefully everybody caught our regular episodes this week, we responded, of course, to Dana White's big doo-doo that he dropped on top of your boy right here. But Luke, I just wanted to ask you, any traditions that you either have taken with you from your childhood into your new family, or anything South American that you've brought in since your marriage to your wife that celebrate the happy holidays in your house?
Obviously, in Colombia, they don't have Thanksgiving, right? So that would make sense. But they do obviously have Christmas. And Christmas is huge in Colombia, way bigger than ours. I told you they have these things called novenas, and it happens for like 12 nights where everyone goes to everyone else's houses, and they party like the Jews, except they're Christians. The Jews know how to party. They party like them, but they're Christian. So there's a lot of that going on. But I would say the one thing that my wife and I have actually held on separately, but it actually works out well for us. My mom celebrated Christmas German style. Now, I'm not sure exactly how that all happened. I think her mother was part German. So I never met my grandparents, so you have to forgive me. So we opened gifts when I was living with my mom on Christmas Eve. We did not wait till Christmas Day. The Colombians open their gifts. I mean, if it's a kid going to sleep, whatever. But if you're old enough, the Colombians open their gifts at the stroke of midnight, Christmas Eve to Christmas Day.
I like
that.
So
you have to wait. You got to wait, but that's what we do.
All right. I don't have anything too wacky historically. This will be an interesting look. This was a COVID Thanksgiving. I actually really enjoyed it. Just wife and kids, animals. We had a good time. We're going to add the mother-in-law, add grandma for this Christmas. So even as you guys are all watching it today on Christmas, hopefully you're celebrating. It's going to be a little bit more low key, no extended relatives. We don't have any kind of food specifications, but I got a tree. I got lights on the house. We'll exchange gifts. My wife loves stockings though. Luke, for me as a kid, stocking was like a very small appetizer to the gifts. My wife's youth was reversed. The stocking is like the jam. Are you guys into that at all? Do you load up that thing or no?
We've done that before, but I find that what ends up happening is, whatever you can stuff in there is not that cool. You can put a lot of candy in there, but then you got to eat your way through 5 pounds of candy. I'm not big on the stocking thing. I mean, I'm not saying don't take it. I'm not saying don't put them up, but I'm with you. Like, what goes under the tree, that should be your focus.
Yes. I used to open up one gift on Christmas Eve. My kids do that too. You usually get like pajamas or something. But hopefully, your little one, Luke, is having a fantastic Father Noel there. I know that in South America, your relatives, unless they were high up in the mountains, right, usually weren't able to have snow. Weren't able to have a white Christmas unless they were partying with the Escobars, right? But maybe you'll get a little dusting in DC. Okay, maybe. All right. Yes.
You're a terrible person, but you're right. They actually didn't see snow until they came to this country, and then they treat it like, like it's some kind of miracle. I guess it is.
Informer. Yep, I know all about that. All right, Luke, let's get into the questions from the people. That's why we're doing this bonus episode as a gift. So if you need a break from your holiday celebration, head on over to the bathroom, right? Drop trowel, turn this clip on. Oh, you're already watching. All right, let's do it, Luke. I'm going to start off right here. I wish we had names attached because I like to shout out the people, but you're very against that for legal purposes, apparently. But Luke, let's start
make one up. Make one up.
This one's from Applesauce Trackface, right? Or whatever. Trash stash, apple stash. Yeah. All right, here we go, Luke. If you could pick one athlete from any sport in their prime to fully commit to MMA, who would it be?
So they're committing once they're in their prime, or like
you're taking the prime version of that athlete, but I'm assuming you're going back and you're instead putting them in MMA from the beginning, right?
Oh, I mean, how is the answer not Bo Jackson? People always say, like, who's the best athlete you've ever seen? I never saw him in person, but like growing up as a kid.
Yes.
We talked about this, dude. There's no way to explain how big it was when Bo Jackson came out. Was the Nike ad, or it was the SI? I can't remember if it was Nike ad or the SI cover, whatever it was, where he had the football pads, the shoulder pads, and then the baseball bat behind his head. Dude, Bo Jackson was on top of the universe.
For about a year and a half, he was bigger than Jordan and just about as big as Mike Tyson for like a full almost 2 years right there.
Yeah, and sticking ball sports, which are all full of respect, and like you cannot overstate what a good athlete he was. And so it'd have to be him, BC. What do you think?
So that's interesting. Thinking about, well, weight-wise, I guess he has to be a heavyweight. What was he in height? Probably like 5'11"?
I know, but you gotta think he could lean up. I mean, light heavyweight, even middle, if he was like really dieting,
Yeah. I mean, look, part of you wants to say somebody like a LeBron James because you're 6'8", quick, jacked, big, but I don't know if that much height. I mean, have we had like largely successful fighters above like 6'6", 6'7"? Not traditionally, right?
Semi Schilt is probably your best case.
Yeah.
Sylvia, maybe.
Yeah. In the more remedial days. So here's the deal. Like, I could give you a sexy answer, but you really could probably just take whoever is the prime NFL linebacker of the moment. You got to believe they'd be a knockout heavyweight, given how strong, explosive they are. Like, just take like a prime Ray Lewis, right? I mean, here is something you can't understand, Luke, about Ray Lewis, right? I mean,
stab.
He might have killed the man actually, but somebody like that, because Burt Sugar used to always say that's where the American heavyweight champions in boxing are. They're playing linebacker for the Ravens. I guess that would make sense. I mean, dude, if you're like Patrick Willis in his prime, you're just an athlete and a freaking half, right? Javon Curse.
Do you watch football currently? American football,
a
like
little.
Aaron Donald, who's like maybe the best defensive player, or like a JJ Watt in his prime. I mean. But then you see people like Greg Hardy. Like, dude, Greg Hardy was a legitimate top tier for a short while. He was a legitimate top tier heavyweight, but he got into the sport late, and I don't know. He's a bit of a donk, and I don't know.
Well, he's showing you in a short sample what can be done with that level of natural size, strength, speed, explosiveness, right? So imagine if you put him in that system at like age 18, you could be looking at a dominant fighter. I mean,
if he could wrestle and or breathe, it'd be different.
Ray Caruth, right? Good receiver, awful boyfriend, right? Sometimes that happens in life. We can't make him. I'm trying to think, is there anybody else? I mean, if you can give me Barry Bonds with whatever he was rubbing the cream and the clear on, I mean, come on, right?
But there's also the current player DK Metcalf. We're speaking like historically. Weren't there famous like decathletes that you think would be pretty good? They've always tried to make. It's always funny, BC. This is true. Like every 4 years, the Olympics always tries to make whoever the reigning American decathlete is to be like some kind of celebrity because they're supposed to be able to do it all. And then every 4 years, everyone forgets about the fucker. Who was like the decathlete of our or
Dan
80s
and
and
Dave.
90s.
Remember Dan and Dave?
Yes, Dan and Dave. Yes, I do. Wow. That's funny. What do you think?
I don't know. I mean, Caitlyn Jenner, maybe, is that where you're going with this?
Bruce Jenner was a hell of an athlete, bro.
I mean,
Don't
look,
think he wasn't.
watch out, Amanda Nunes. We got Caitlyn in there from the beginning. You never really know what can happen. All right, Luke, I'm bored with that. But the second half of this question was, can you guys get MK rash guards? Luke, where are we going with this? Where are we going here?
So the people who don't train can also not wear them. I mean, what would on earth be the point? We could try, VC, well, in all seriousness, we have had meetings about other gear and apparel to sell with, all rebranded,
Yes.
blah, 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 available everywhere. What is the status of that?
It went about as far as our meeting to try to incorporate international shipping into the mix. Like, Showtime can do almost anything, Luke, but ship outside of the lower 48, apparently. You know what I mean? Great. I don't know. I don't think we had some good designs and ideas. What would you like to see? Let's focus on the merch real quick. Our first line of merch, quality through the roof, comfortable, decently cool, a little bit more dad cool, but decently cool. I would like certainly to take some of our catchphrases and that kind of stuff, like some of the artwork that Web Scream has done, or Dickles, some of that kind of stuff. That would be hilarious or amazing on a t-shirt, or just taking our two logos and blowing those up more. But in terms of the options of what you could get, what are we missing here?
I mean, I'm thinking a little bit outside the box on this a little bit. Like, so for example, I would want to have like some shirts you could wear to the gym that celebrate the front yard gym.
Yes.
For you, I would want to have, what do the cooks wear? Like, it's like a chef wears it. It's like an apron.
Yes.
An apron that's like, even we couldn't put Cumberland Farms on there. We could be like, official Trash Panda hot dog taste tester. You know what I mean? Like throwbacks to the show that you could wear in things just beyond, hey, here's your T-shirt of the day. Like,
so you want jokes that need to be explained, right? That like if I wear Morning Combat sweatshirt in the airport, people are like Luke. Okay, I get that. But you want like just the tip.
Yes, and you would wear it like we should get some condoms that say MK condoms. It literally is just the tip, or you could get the COVID condoms and they could go over your balls, as we talked about before.
we should change the game, because right now the thing goes over the whole shaft. We should just do just the tips, right? It's a risky move, right? But
yeah, I mean, listen, it will feel better. I don't know if it'll prevent pregnancy or disease, but it will feel money. How about that? It will feel money.
All right.
Okay, so let's get to this now. I'll read the next one to you, BC, which is from, I'm going to say this is from Oscar the Bitch. I don't know. How long do you think it will take for MMA to peak out like boxing? For example, I commonly hear people say Ali would beat modern boxers, while in MMA, fighters 10 years ago would get killed. So, since MMA has many more dimensions than boxing, do you see it taking far longer to peak out?
Well, I don't think boxing peaked out as much. It didn't peak out in people not being willing to get better than before, because this day and age, the modern day athlete, you're quicker, stronger, faster, and they're harder workers. Meaning back in the day, in Ali's day, you'd get fat and smoke cigarettes between fights, right? Or in the 50s and 60s. Nowadays, you're like a Floyd Mayweather. You're in fight shape all year round. I will say, which is probably the spirit of this question, that boxing seems to be the only major sport, Luke, when you're talking historically, that the guys back then were better than the guys today, except for the debate about like how would 6'9" Tyson Fury, fight Rocky Marciano, because back then you had a boxing gym on every corner. People grew up in an era when it was still a sport of kings and it was part of the culture. Now it's a niche sport. So I guess that makes sense. But like in basketball, you can never be like, George Mikan was actually better than Shaq, right? Like no chance. Do you ever see that in MMA where it sort of just flattens out and then you have generations that are actually worse than the eras before? I don't know how you'd get there.
I mean, I certainly wouldn't rule it out, but I feel like we're a ways from that. You're just still seeing best practices not merely being spread, but discovered. Like, how far apart should you stand? What's the best kind of way to have, minimal amounts of offense land on you? Like, what are the best sort of defensive principles? You know, what takedowns do you really need? Which ones do you not need? What are submissions you need and not? Like, they figured out a lot of this, I feel like, but it's still very, very far. Plus, because the universe is much more open, there's going to be just so many more turns of the screw, where you'll get to a point where it's plateaued and someone's going to discover something and it's going to turn again and blah 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 blah. So like, you know, and by the way, to an extent, you might already be there. Like, could a prime George St. Pierre? And what I mean by that is St. Pierre from 2009, like that version. Could he beat Kamaru Usman? Probably, right? Would you bet on that guy to beat Kamaru? I might,
mean,
BC.
But probably starting with George, though, because George was in some ways at the highest level, the first true mixed
Ahead of his time guy,
martial artist, right? Like, got leveled up on every category across the board, rather than coming in as a wrestling background guy who's picking up striking, right?
Right. But what I mean to say is, you know, you could take that guy, transport him in time. I don't mean like, oh, give him modern best practices. Nope. Whatever he knew at that day when he fought Thiago Alves, take that guy and have him go against Kamaru Usman. I bet he wins. So to some extent, you're getting a little bit of that. But I just feel like, you know, there's so much creative potential. And you see, the sport's still growing in China. I mean, you know, what if this ends up being a huge sport in China? And
that's a good point.
There's like a lot of different ways this could go. We're not very close.
We're so far from ever leveling out. And the question about the Ali thing is twofold. And one, because like I mentioned, guys today, like look at Deontay Wilder, they started boxing at like 19, right? It's so different than somebody who grew up in Golden Gloves at like age 5, right? Or was boxing in their house at age 3, like a young Floyd Mayweather. And obviously when you're talking about somebody like an Ali, once in a while, you're going to get those greats that just withstand generations. Like, you know, who's going to be better than Tiger Woods in golf? It's probably going to take a long ass time. But specifically to MMA, I always ask this question and never really get a good response. Have we not seen a discipline yet that will completely change the game? So we think of MMA as you're either, you know, you can be a well-rounded guy, or you can be originally based in boxing, amateur wrestling, or like some other level of like taekwondo or jujitsu. You know, once in a while you get a judoka based person who adds the other elements, but you really don't see anything else. Is there any other kind of fighting or form of fighting or thing? Once in a while you get a karate, you know, you get a Machida, you get a Wonder Boy, but is there anything else in this idea of mixed martial arts in the world that has to do with fighting? I mean, I know we had freestyle brawlers like a Tank Abbott.
You could do, which is why China is interesting. You could do the Chinese San Shao thing that Kung Lee had. So you have kickboxing with takedowns.
Yes.
You know, shoot boxing. I think you have kickboxing with submissions, which they do in Japan, which is not very big, but
a shoot the box. When my plumbing's backed up and I'm looking for anything to put that thing in, I find a shoot the box really fast, right? Put a thing on that, put it in the garbage. I'm done with that. All right.
But you get the idea, like
Sambo. When will be the first Sambo-based UFC champion, Luke? Okay.
I don't know. Yeah, the Sambo too. But Sambo is very, very. People from Sambo will say this is not true, but it literally its origins lie from judo. Yeah. So it's very, very similar to judo.
Keith Hackney, the master of the ball punch. No, the master of the bag attack on Joe San. Yeah. We don't really. Yeah, Luke, let's go to the next one. Come on.
You're up. Your turn.
Oh, hey, how about it? Hey, Luke, post-pandemic, okay? In a world in which we go back to where we were early March 2020, any chance we get live morning combat shows where us donks, meaning the viewers, can show up to hang out? They really enjoyed your pre-UFC 244 show at Legends. I have no idea what that is, Luke. Is that the one with you and Misha Tate?
No, I did it solo at a bar not far from MSG before the BMF title. So we had Israel Adesanya come through. We had Reyes come through. Laura Sanko, Shevchenko came through. Both Shevchenko sisters were there, and somehow you were at BC. How is that possible? Jake Shields came through. That's actually when I had a long conversation with Jake Shields. You know, listen, we don't share political views, and he did chuck a Starbucks at somebody, but we talked for a long time. I have a lot of respect for Jake Shields.
He hates the media, that guy, and laptops.
He does hate the media, yes.
Luke, so the whole idea of a live show, look, a couple years ago, it started to take off where people who had successful podcasts took that ish on the road, kind of like what you're just talking about for yourself. And I did it a couple times with ESPN's pro wrestling podcast, Cheap Heat, after I had left the podcast.
Peter Rosenberg?
Yeah, Peter Rosenberg had been able to secure a venue. We probably had 400 or 500 people in attendance, and it was awesome. It's like it's the closest thing you and I, Luke, could ever come to like stand-up comedy, meaning you got an audience that just loves your shtick so much. You can pick up the mic and say the corniest joke, and you'll get half boos and half laughs, and it's fun as heck. It's a variety show. You bring on special guests. Do you ever envision a time, let's say it's like Conor McGregor versus, somebody in the super fight of our lifetimes, Conor Floyd 2 coming to Las Vegas in 2023. And you and I do a live show at the Whiskey Down at the MGM Grand. And, no? Yeah, maybe?
100%. 100%. I've had conversations with our boss about this on the Showtime side, not the CBS side. They absolutely want it. So we're not very close to that right now, obviously, but you're imagining a world where we could do that. I still think we have to grow the audience a little bit, but we're on our way. And by the time that all the smoke clears on all of this, we'll be a hell of a lot closer. And plus, I think people are going to be in the mood. Like, I've done impromptu tweet ups and gotten, honestly, 100, 200 people to show.
Well, that's not bad. I mean, the fear is that you would rent a place. You would specifically rent a venue that holds, 800 people, and you get 76 people showing up. That's the fear, right?
Yeah. So you would have to start humbly, but it can be done. And I've done it humbly, and it was a huge success. Even like I said, we were at a sports bar. Shouts to Legends. They were great. They accommodated us. They were super cool. Adesanya came through, dude. He looked like, he obviously is a celebrity, but I mean, you should have seen the crowd adoration for him. He couldn't move 5 feet without going for, people asking for 1 million autographs. And he was friendly, and he signed everything. And Reyes was there. And it was a killer event. So if I can do that solo, we can't do that with the power that you bring and Showtime, all of us. Like,
we'll get some media guests. We'll get fighter guests. Yeah, we'll make that thing fun as balls. Okay, definitely.
Yeah. The answer is we don't have no idea when, but the answer is yes, for sure.
Probably sometime before we get international shipping. Sometime before
that. Yes. Okay, this one's to me, but I'll read it out loud anyway. Luke, what is your best or favorite memory from your time as a speechwriter? Okay, and the BC, the question is for you. So let's actually go backwards because they have a separate one for you, but it's the same. So you go first and I'll go second, which is same question for BC. Favorite memory from your time at ESPN?
Great question. I worked there from 2005 to 2017. Good Lord. Look, the best times ever at ESPN are when the celebrities come through for the big car wash. So how it would work is, let's say you're a writer or an editor at ESPN. And for most of that run, I was like a, boxing or MMA editor who wrote on the side. There'd be an email that would go out that would say like, hey, Will Ferrell's coming in, or Matthew McConaughey, or Hank Aaron, or whatever. And you'd try to request time with that person, and based on importance, they'd fit you in, right? So I could easily say, Luke, like the time in 2011, I sat down with Hulk Hogan. It was, pre-racism. It was awesome, right? The time that I met.
This is before he was all into the N-word, huh?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, technically in the space-time continuum, he had already said the N-word on a sex tape featuring his best friend's wife. Wow. So the times I've done that with Sugar Ray Leonard on and on. I mean, look, just name the person. Puff Daddy, I had a weird pro wrestling interview with him. It's awesome. It's the time, like Daryl Strawberry came in. I was like, couldn't form words because it was like my childhood idol. But there's one story above the rest real quick, Luke, and it involves the actor Liam Neeson. Remember him from Taken?
Yes, of course.
He was there to promote Taken 2 or something. And he's a big boxing fan. He's gone to a lot of fights at MSG. So we threw a shot in the dark request to get time with him. We were awarded 10 minutes, but it was like, hey, his schedule's too busy. You're going to have to walk and talk with him from one stop to the other, like from the radio studio, walking to the Sports Center studio. You'll have 5. So I really was like, yeah, whatever. Okay, I'll take it. But I wasn't prepping a lot. Look, I really was like, okay, this is whatever. So what happens is I get this random call from the booker, and they're like, hey, another interview fell out and we canceled some others. You can get 20 minutes with him right now if you come right now to the president ESPN's office. So I worked on the floor with the presidential wing, but you're not allowed in there. It's a whole separate wing of the floor. I got to go in to the president office. Oddly enough, this is where like Skipper used to sit, right? Like all the big heads. It's all black. The walls are all black, the carpet, the painting on, like everything, the furniture, everything's just all black. And it's got this giant window view of the thing. And I walk in and the PR people come running up and they go, don't ask about anything but, and they look down at their paper. They're like, but boxing. And I'm like, what are you talking about? They go, the Hartford Courant was just here. Cause sometimes ESPN would fit them in. And they asked about his late wife and he was crying. He was angry. And they're like, go in there, but only ask specifically about boxing. I was scared as balls. I walk in, his back is to me. It's in this dark black office. It's just like this quiet thing. He stands up. I had no idea the dude's like 6'7". All right. He stands up and he's towering and he shakes my hand and he's like downtrodden. And I'm like, this is going to be painful. Luke, I went from him wanting nothing to do with me to having unlimited time. I was there over a half hour, basically about the 5-6 minute mark. He realized that I had enough of a knowledge about his movies, including like Darkman and some of his weird ones, and then started asking boxing questions. He ended the interview telling me a story about how it was his life's mission to get his dad, a huge boxing fan, Muhammad Ali's autograph. And he once ran into Ali at this party in Scotland and Ali wrote out the
you told
autograph.
me the story. Yeah.
Yeah, and he presented it to his dad, and his dad broke down in tears right in front of him and said this was the greatest moment of my life to get an autograph from Ali. So Neesum's got tears running down his face. I got tears running down my face. It was just like this oddly pure, amazing moment. And I'm not even like this super fan of the guy. And like he hugged me goodbye, and it was just one of those where it's like, I'm never going to forget that. That was awesome. So yeah, long story short, Luke, me and the guy from Taken, we're bros, all right?
Very good. Well, I don't have any story, anything like that. In fact, someone's asking what my favorite story is. The day I quit, I hated it. I hated that job more than any job I've ever hated in my life. And MMA is full of scumbags. It's full of very stupid people, very morally warped people, not scientifically literate, people who just love power for the sake of power. And that's really bad and annoying and awful. But if you knew who was running your government, or at least advising people who were running your government, they are all those things except smart. I should say, except also smart, right? So they can take, moral failings and all of these other sort of awful things about people, and they can find clever ways to hide it or to implement their agendas or blah, blah, blah. Which is to say, there's a lot of ways to be a speechwriter in this town, but the way that I was doing it was for hire, essentially. It was through a very, at the time, prestigious company. But I hated it because the only people I ever got assigned, well, that's not true. There was one big project that I worked on that was actually very good. But in general, the people who needed my help were people who were fucking awful. And by awful, I mean like big pharma, big telecom, big, you name it. Like, how do we convince people that what we do is better than what we do? That was my job. And so every day it's like, wow, how do I convince the American public that big pharma is actually good for them? And so this true story to BC, my hair fell out. I had to go to the doctor because my fingernails fell out. All of them.
Wait, hold on. So what do you mean by they fell out? Explain that.
They began to separate. See how it's pink here, right? I got food encrusted in it, but in general, it's pink.
Yeah.
You begin to see it turn like clear, and they separated from the skin and then just became like I would wash my hands and they become waddly. You could just tear them right off.
Because of
and
stress.
I asked the doctor, I went to the doctor. I was like, do I have AIDS? Like, what the fuck am I doing here, doc? He did a whole, I had to go through all these tests and I had blood tests and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, dude, there's nothing wrong with you. And he's like, so talk me about your work situation. And I just unloaded. He's like, so this job, and this is exactly what he said. He goes, this job, and I'm not exaggerating, is killing me. And I was so morally bothered by it. I was so disturbed by it. I quit. I couldn't take it anymore. And I didn't have another job lined up or anything. I had a little bit, when I say a little bit, I had about 2 months to float, and that was it. And I was like, I'm just going to find another job. I don't give a fuck what it is. And so I did. But that was an awful, awful time. Listen, is it cool when you write? The way they would test the language, BC, is, so I would write something. 2 pages, let's say. It was longer than that, but let's say 2 pages. And what they would do is they would get a focus group, and they would tell people, they would give them this little device. I'm going to hold up my phone, but they would give them a device. That's my lovely daughter. And on it, it would have a dial. You can go left, you can go right, right? And all the way left is I hate it all the way. all the way around as I liked it all the way. And they would tell you in real time, as you hear words or phrases, tell us how you feel, adjust it. And like, don't wait till the end of a sentence. Like if you hear a word that sounds, yeah, that sounds good, dial it up a little bit. And what you would see is, you could see as there'd be a prepared video statement of someone reading my speech. They would read it, and then you could see in the back how the dials were reacting to what you were writing, what doesn't work, what does work, and you would use that to refine the message. Is it cool when you have a message that you came up with and then the dials shoot super high with a positivity rating? Yes, it is very cool. But dude, that job
sounds like you described being a WWE writer working for Vince McMahon, basically, Luke.
I mean, dude, I worked in the military and in MMA, and both of those I was like, wow, the morality here is so much better.
Now,
you took money from a dictator, no big deal.
Some people think, you know, Dana White's video just attacking the media is a precursor for his eventual you know, move into politics and maybe running for president. If he reached out to you and said, Luke, I know we've had our differences, but I know your background, I know your talent level, I know your toughness. I need you to write speeches for me. We cannot tell anyone about it though, but I need this to be a thing and I will pay stupid money. You want your own gym? I'll build it behind your house so you don't have to look like a vagabond panhandler out in the front yard, you absolute dirt hole. Would you accept that?
Not a dime. Not a dime. I'll never go back to that life. That was a really bad time. That was a really, really, really bad time in my life.
All right.
I hated it. Yeah, dude, you don't know what it's like to be morally bothered until you watch your body disintegrate in front of you, and then you're like, "Holy fuck, man!"
In college, I was the janitor at Stop and Shop. I cleaned up things you will never understand. I was very morally bothered.
Yeah, I was the guy jacking off in the back. You're welcome.
That people's body fluids and things could shoot out in such ridiculous way. I mean, people pooped high up on the wall, Luke, like high up. Like you had to get on all fours, attach a firecracker to your a-hole, and then shoot it up. I mean, I don't understand how this could happen. Luke, let's continue here. What was the best gift you've ever gotten on Christmas? They added what was the worst. Do you have one or the other or both, Luke? What's the best gift you ever received?
I will say that the best gift as a kid, obviously we got a video game system that was big, but I'll never forget when I was in 7th grade, I got my family, they didn't go crazy. I mean, I come from a middle-class family, but they did get me a nicer gift than normal. So they got me like a better bike than normal. And I used that bike I rode it quite literally till the wheels came off. It was one of the best bikes I've ever had. But honestly, like the most impactful gift, and this was years ago, I forget the name of the company, but do you remember years ago, there were these little pocket cameras where you could record straight to the camera, then it had a flip-up USB, and you'd pop it right in. My wife was the one who encouraged me to start recording myself on video. Like she was like, you seem to be a really, you like to publicly speak. Why don't I get you this camera? And it wasn't the nicest camera per se, but what it was is, again, you could hold it up. This is before cell phones had nicer cameras. So it'd be about the equivalent of a modern day, like say, nice iPhone or something. And you could record it, flip open the USB, plug it right into your computer, and transfer the video over. She was like, you should really get into this. Really, I credit her with beginning to stoke the idea that this was something I could do. And look at us today. So that has to be, again, was that the most expensive gift I've ever gotten? No, but that made a big difference in my life.
Wow, that's awesome. I have one answer, and it was amazing. Christmas of '86. I was in 3rd grade, which was also the Christmas, by the way, that the first series of WWF action figures came out. Remember those big husky ones that were like hard plastic and heavy? And that Christmas, by the way, I finished out, I had the entire series. So at that moment was great. But the real gift was when I came down the stairs Christmas morning, the G.I. Joe aircraft carrier, Luke. Do you remember this thing? It's 8 feet long. I had that completely set up in my living room.
That's huge.
Dude, that thing, you basically can take every toy you have, whether it's G.I. Joe or not, every action figure you have, Luke, you can set it up on there and you have like a whole, week's worth of entertainment. My dad tells a great story in which he put that thing together piece by piece all night on Christmas Eve. And then while carrying it up the stairs from the basement, hit the wall with it and it dropped and fell apart into a million pieces and fell under the stairs. And he stayed up all night and put it back together after retrieving it. So shout out to parents, Luke, who've done that kind of stuff. That because of that story and because of how fun that thing was, I will never forget it. I don't have any worse stories. Luke, I had a great childhood. Okay, so get off. All right.
Yeah, the worst gift. I one time had a girlfriend. Have you ever seen these stupid ass gifts where you could buy someone a star You ever seen that?
Yes, yes.
I had one of those, and I was like, "What the fuck am I going to do with this?
It's
Face
named
6
after
7
you.
times a day to pray? What am I doing?
Yeah, same thing. You could like buy a cow. You can never meet it, but there's a cow somewhere out in the Midwest, Luke, that's eventually going to be a hamburger or a baseball glove, and it's yours. Okay, it's like okay.
Yeah, it's like great, thanks, you fucking cheap
All
loser.
right.
All right. Okay, here we go, BC. What is your favorite trophy in sports aesthetically? Also, best looking belt in combat sports. Why don't we start with the first one? Best looking trophy, our favorite trophy in terms of aesthetic sports.
I think the one that seems to have the most like royalty to it is the Stanley Cup, and it's not just because like they carved the winner in, so you have all the history written on it going back into like the 1910s, whatever, how far back it goes, but that it's like a drinking bowl / cup, and like that the culture is that you party the crap out of it after you win. And then every player gets X amount of time with it the whole offseason. So real quick, I have a first cousin, shout out to Tim O'Brien, who works for the NHL. And at one point, Luke, his job was to follow the Stanley Cup around Europe to the players who won it. This is about 10 years ago. And, they'd take turns with it. They'd fill it with beer and they'd get loaded and they'd party with it and take a million pictures. And he had to document that on camera and take care of it and go with the team that would move it to the next residence. That's pretty badass. Every other trophy just seems to sit up on like a mantle somewhere. This is like a party in a box, right?
Yeah, I would agree. I think that the Stanley Cup, it's just the one that I mean, I don't know if it looks the best. The World Series one looks pretty good. But the Stanley Cup, it just screams party.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's the baton of partying. Like when the Capitals won it, and then they went down to Georgetown and they were boozing all over the city, and everyone was following them, and they're jumping in they were outside Tony and Joe's, which is a famous DC bar down there by the waterfront in Georgetown, and they were out there just literally swimming in the goddamn, what do you call when you toss the pennies, BC? What's that thing called?
Fountain. The fountain.
Fountain, yeah.
Do you think anything gross has taken place in there? Do you think like Bobby Orr put some nude cheeks in there a few times and went to town?
Yes, but it's been thoroughly clean. I would say that the worst, though, that's what they asked this exactly, but like I've also like the World Cup trophy was kind of nubs, not that great.
Yeah.
It's small.
Yeah.
What else is not that great? Like,
well, do you remember in the women's the LPGA, the Women's Golf Association? Do you remember about like late 90s, early 2000s? One of the tournaments had a trophy that was shaped like a dong. It actually looked exactly like a dong. And the women that would win it, you can Google this, would kiss it in the picture celebrating. And it was like the most absurdly phallic, ridiculous thing that finally someone spoke up and was like, maybe we should change the shape of this thing. The pictures are like it's have you seen the shit written all over it, Luke?
So, dude, why does the women's PGA trophy have testicles with ball hair on it? This is a little too literal. What about best combat sports belt? I've had this debate on my show before.
Yes.
Hold on, my sister's calling me.
They calling you, Luke.
Hang on.
You can answer on the air,
How do I fucking decline? There we go. Sorry about that. I don't know if you can edit that out, Mikey, but if you can, that'd be great.
No, it's good. It's part of the entertainment,
it's part of how high tech this podcast is. I am partial to things that have a little bit of wings on them. I think the glory belts are pretty cool. I thought the original Elite XC belt was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I did not love the Strikeforce belt personally, but or the Pride belts. I never really enjoyed that much. But the old UFC belt's pretty decent. But for me, I'm going to go with either Glory or Elite XC. What do you think, BC?
In MMA, I look, in boxing, most of the belts suck except for the WBC ones, the green ones. The green ones are solid. They're timely. Even though WBC is a bunch of, marauders, that's a timeless belt. And MMA, dude, I stand by the UFC Super Fight Championship. Remember that belt that Shamrock wore? It's got like the original guy on it. That's a pretty handsome belt. Like that's solid. This is a big debate in pro wrestling circles. I've always been a big fan of the white WWE and Intercontinental strap, also the World Heavyweight Championship at WCW that Ric Flair wore so often, that giant one. So yeah, it's a good debate, Luke. I don't think you have any pro wrestling answers though. Right?
No. Okay.
All right. Let's go on to the next one here, Luke. They ask.
I gotta read, fucker. Right? Or did you read the last one?
I don't know.
No, you're doing odds. I do evens. So that's right. So you're up.
Luke, who's your most underrated fighter in history in terms of accomplishments in versus mainstream recognition in higher end companies. Personally, I think it's Josh Thompson. I think he won both of the biggest fights of his career, the third Gill fight and the Ben Hendo fight. Thanks, says this Jamoke. Thank you very much for sending that in. Luke, they think it's Josh Thompson. Who do you think is the most underrated fighter in history?
I never know how to, if someone's asked me this on my live chat before, I never know how to answer it. What does that mean, underrated? If they actually accomplished something and no one appreciated it?
Or does it mean great fighter who never won big? You know, like, what does it really mean? Yeah.
You know, Jake Shields, I think, is underappreciated. To be honest, I think he's underappreciated big time. Yeah, I'll go Jake Shields, actually. I think he has done a lot, and he's certainly accomplished a lot. You couldn't take it away from him. But in terms of, like, the amount of recognition he gets for what he did, I think there's a gap. I think it's a gap.
I always stand by Randy Couture, and it always comes up when we do these greatest heavyweight arguments, and I always bring Couture's name in, and people laugh me out of the building, and I'm like, when was it not cool to celebrate Captain America? Like, this guy, over 2 divisions, he sort of spanned the gap from it being, you know, caveman stuff into it being a legitimate sport, and succeeded into his late 40s. Very, very, very likely, Luke, due to pharmaceuticals, as he was shredded abs at like age 48. But this guy was awesome, and he came into the sport so late, and he invented dirty boxing in some ways on the highest level.
Yeah, I like that call as well. Although at the time he was quite celebrated, you know, divisions are two different belts, or weight classes, I should say. But fair point. Like, where are we now with it? I would allow that one. I think it's a decent choice. All right, I am up next, I do believe. So for that, I will go to question number 8. I've always thought it would be cool to have an entire UFC card done WWE Royal Rumble style. Well, this gentleman doesn't read books. Where you don't know any of the fighters. That's a very unfair statement on my part. Where you don't know any of the fighters fighting until they make the walk to the cage. Luke, how dumb is this? Brian, how awesome. I mean, here's the thing. In theory, this is one of those ideas that's like, what would be great for the fans and like super shitty for the fighters, right? What would be a situation where you could do that? Would it be awesome for me, for Brian, for you guys watching out there? There could be no doubt. It would be tremendous. And I suppose like you could narrow it down where you had some idea of who you might be going against or whatever. There'd be ways to make it not so crazy for the fighters. But in general, if you really want to succeed in this business, you got to get the dubs. And to get the dubs, sometimes that means short notice, and sometimes that means,
well, Luke, let me pause you.
Comfort zone, but
Luke, I don't think they're saying that the fighters would not know who they're fighting. I think they're saying that us as fans and consumers would buy, like, let's say UFC 300. We would buy UFC 300 on the strength of the company's reputation, but not know the fights and not know what order they're coming. So when you're watching at home or you're in the arena, they're like, up next, a 3-round lightweight bout. Let me announce to the ring first, Tony Ferguson. You're like, oh shit, yeah, this is great. Who's he gonna fight? Yeah, right. I mean, would you be into that?
Yeah, I mean, if the fighters knew, I don't think you could keep it a secret. Someone would leak it.
Ariel would ruin it.
If nobody knows who's fighting.
Yeah, Ariel would ruin it, right? He'd break all those
Probably.
news. Yeah,
probably.
I think it
and
could
then,
only.
And then Dana would get bitter and then block him again, and it would be a whole thing. I don't want to go through that. So
then Dana will put out a hit video and drop doogies on me. Luke, I think it could only work in a like UFC 300 type thing, but it would never happen because that's horrible marketing. I mean, right? Like you just basically be like, you know, you might get McGregor, you might not. It's like when you go to a card store in the 80s, Luke, and like you could tell that the owner of the store was a dirtbag. So you'd open up the packs ahead of time and take out the good cards and put crappy ones in. And then there'd be a sign above it like, here's the 88 top set. Who knows? You could get the rookie card, you know, and you'd open it up to be like all commons in there, right? It'd be like, yeah, that's you couldn't do it because you sell pay-per-views on the names, but it is a very exciting idea to do something a little bit different.
Listen, it'd be fun. You would have a hard time getting fighters to sign up for that. There would be chaos as a consequence. All right, BC, I think you're up next.
Yeah, so this question is for me. They say you've had some great co-hosts in your ventures, which I guess they're talking about podcasts and video shows. People like ESPN's Peter Rosenberg, King Mo, who used to join me on the CBS MMA pod, Adam Silverstein, who I did the wrestling pod with, and Nick Costos, as well as Rashad Evans, all people I've done CBS stuff with recently. Where does Luke rank amongst these
Wow.
hosts? Also, can we get a shout out to the ITC OG Mount Rushmore, which is the original CBS wrestling pod I did, the In This Corner pod, where we Mount Rushmorealized our 4 favorite listeners, blah, blah, blah. Shout out to all you OGs on that regard. Luke, you rank very high here. The name that's missing out of here is my guy, Rafe Bartholomew, my brother in this game. Luke, I'm sure, because you and I have great chemistry, or we wouldn't be on the show. When you get somebody who has great chemistry. Rafe is like next level brother chemistry, where I can hear the tone in his voice and know what he's about to say, or if I should cut him off or whatever. It's very rare you get that. We're hilarious together. We do great. You're different. You're different in a great way. It can be combative. It could be challenging. You challenge me to be great and better. And everyone is different in terms of the people you end up working with. They challenge you in different ways, or bring out either an argumentative side or a fun side in different ways there. I'm not going to rank and who's better. I mean, Peter Rosenberg was fun because I felt like it was a new audience in both rap music there and also in pro wrestling to try to go after. And it was somebody I respect a lot, but everybody's been great to work with. Luke, I mean, this is the biggest show I've ever done. So it must mean, Luke, that you that you bring out a great side of me. And you do, you challenge me, you'll no sell my ish. So thank you, Luke, for
I sell your good parts. I mean, I no sell your ish, but I definitely sell your good parts. I mean, BC, you should take it as a compliment. Like, I've been doing solo shows my whole life, and then this is the first time I had a partner, and I chose to leave a solo show, which I didn't have to. I was treated quite well. I had the keys to the kingdom there at SiriusXM, all for this opportunity. So it's true that by default you're number one, but also the fact that you're the only one to ever get me to do it, I think should also tell you a lot. People just don't sometimes seem to understand like what we do here a little bit. Like sometimes I feel like the audience wants us to be more alike. And there are parts of us, our personalities, that are alike. But honestly, like, unless there are differences, and in some cases, sometimes tension, it doesn't work. You have to get, yes, overlap. There has to be some. And I think we have more of that than people realize at times. But dude, the way it works is that, like, we are at our core very similar people. We are white dads who have kids who love combat sports.
We're from the 90s. Yeah.
We have everyone's identically same age. We grew up in the same generation. Like, there are a lot of meaningful overlaps between our lives, but then there begins to get the departures. Dude, that's what makes it great. We cover so many things. If people can disagree with me or you, or agree, whatever, they can take any position they want, but it covers the bases. And I feel like it's pretty fucking unique.
I'll say, like, what I love about doing this with you, Luke, is, and I knew it right from day one on MMA Beat, is like, you'll go from 0 to 60 like that. And that's passion. It's not just, blowhardedness, meaning you care about your damn take. If I say something ridiculous, you want to counter it and argue. And also, I don't see a lot of people challenge you and you don't take it personally. And there's something there. I mean, when you find that creative chemistry, like, you can tell right away, Luke, when you're paired with somebody, whether it's for one time or a show, that you don't have it and you're never going to have it. And it's a lot like real life relationships with, wife and girlfriend the same way. It's like,
yeah, we're more than fuck buddies is the answer.
Gross.
Right, BC?
Did you work? Have you done anything long term with somebody, like, besides the MMA Beat? Have you done anything?
Nope. But on purpose. The first show I ever did was on CBS Radio here in Washington, D.C. It was called MMA Nation. That was the original name of the show. And then I transitioned. I did a show like once a week on SiriusXM, and we were all three of us were remote. It was me, this guy named Ricky Bones, and then you might know RJ Clifford.
Yes.
We did a version of the Fight Club for a time. That was not long lived before I eventually got offered my own show. And so I did that for, I think, 5 years.
You did the Craig Carton show. Was that a fun give and take with those guys?
Yes, it was. But I mean, here's the thing. Craig Carton comes from, and by the way, he's out of prison and he's back on WFN and he's doing well. And he sent me a really nice note when I announced I was going to CBS. So shouts to Craig Carton, who I know some people get the bad impression about it, but I'll be forever grateful to him. There's a couple of people in this business, man. And, this too, BC. There are people who won't help you. There are people who will sabotage you. There are people who will help you, but they kind of expect something in return, which I'm okay with. And then there are people who will help you and don't expect anything in return. Like they don't get anything out of it. They're not looking to scratch your back and have theirs scratched as well. They just want to do nice things. Craig was the latter of those for me.
Yeah.
He didn't need to help me at all, and he did. And in a number of different ways. And so I understand talk radio and what it's about. When I say talk radio, I mean for sports, which doesn't really cover MMA and boxing, for the most part. It's a completely different vibe how they operate there. He tried to bring that to MMA, and I don't know how receptive MMA audiences were to that necessarily, but the guy is a major talent, and he made some mistakes, but he paid for them, and he's back on the grind now, and I'm really thrilled for him. So yes, I enjoyed that, but it was, I wasn't the original host of that show. Mike Straka was the original one, so they were halfway done before I even got the called up from the bullpen, to come in. So it was cool. The checks were amazing, but it was short-lived,
Look, there's a saying in our business called TV money, and there's a saying called TV money for a reason. Okay. Even today, it kicks the shit out of digital money. Okay. So it is pretty legit. Thank you.
Dude, TV money is wow. I remember when I first got my check and I'm like, wait, it's this big even after taxes?
For 1 hour of work or 2 hours of work. Yes. And I do respect, by the way, what you're saying about Craig Carton being a good dude. Like, I've told stories about how John Anik is the best. Todd Grisham, a guy that would take the shirt off his back to help you in your career for not wanting nothing in return. Yes, there are some rare, almost angels of people that are just legit and great. And I certainly love and cherish those folks. Thank you.
All right. So then that takes us now to number 10, BC.
Oh, yeah. Luke, what are your thoughts on doing?
No, I'm doing 10. I'm doing 10.
No, who's on
I'm
first?
doing even. Yeah. You do odds.
All right.
What are your thoughts on doing a show 5 days a week, BC?
All right. So I assume they're talking about a live morning combat. So in some ways, we already do this show 5 days a week, right? It's MK all day, nearly every day. But the reality is, like, you got your live show one day. I've got interviews. We've got whatever. We're 3 days a week. It's really my dream. And it's been, dude, since day one of my podcast career, when Rafe and I were on Grantland and we did the ropes boxing podcast ahead of Mayweather Pacquiao and got Bill Simmons' thumbs up to start it, I was thinking, man, all I want to do is this 5 days a week, which is basically a radio show. It's not a podcast at that point. Could we do 5 days a week? I still see it as our end game vision. I just think right now, for the most part, we've got enough content every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but even sometimes it's like, oh crap, what are we going to talk about? Okay, we can do this fun shtick here. We can do this fun SJW segment here. Now, look, we've been so blessed with content that we've been doing the interviews separate, when in reality, we could do Tuesday interview day where we do a full show of just interviews. We have flexibility. Could we do it 5 days a week? I think we could pull it off. Would it completely water us down? Maybe. I think this 3 day a week thing works great right now. And we'll see what kind of demand / need push is. But we're almost 5 days a week as it is. I mean, when you count your live chat in there, that's a thing to build around. That's a big ass show. So, we're kind of there right now.
Yeah, I mean, could we do it? I was doing it for 5 years, BC, and I was doing it 3 hours a day. I was doing 15 hours of radio a week. Like, the answer is, could you do it? Easily.
So whenever I see people comment, Luke, and go, man, I wish Luke Thomas would just get to the point. That's like a 5-minute rant for 45 seconds of info. It's like, dude, how do you think he filled 3 hours a day?
I know. It's like, dude, I got to set this up. I got 15 minutes to kill before the next commercial break. But the point being is this: you could do it even if you talked more parsimoniously. But BC, the way in which I was able to make that show work is that, yes, there are, I was on the air. I was literally on the air. It was in the last hour of a 3-hour show when they announced Mayweather McGregor, when they made it official. And SiriusXM burst through the door and was like, you got to do 2 more hours. We need you because this is the biggest news in sports. And I did. I carried it for 2 more. You know how I did it? I took calls. So, like, there are ways to do it. One, you'd have to take calls, live calls on the air. I think it's a thing you could do. 2, BC, and this is the other part. It's like, okay, for all the times that you have a Mayweather McGregor, which is pretty fucking rare, you're going to have a lot of weeks where there's nothing going. What else are you going to talk about? And I would just talk about whatever I wanted to. Movies, video games, interesting trends in the world, this viral video, blah, 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 blah. And I have a crew of people I can talk to on the air about it. the show would have to become a lot more than what it is, which is still pretty narrowly defined around combat sports. But could we do 5 days a week? Let's say 2 hours a day. So let's say 10 hours. You see, if I can do 3, or let's say 15 a week solo, there's no reason we couldn't do 10 together.
We haven't even begun to play with the toys that we have. And what I mean by that is, our work relationships with Rashad Evans, who we can, work with under the CBS deal whenever we want. My good friend Rafe, as we talked about for boxing stuff, Chuck Mindenhall, friend of the MK family. I mean, we have a lot of options at our disposal, should we ever want to expand. Luke, did you like the MMA Beat? That's how that's our first date. Your first date with your wife at the damn gun range, picking out presidents to take out. You and I, our first date, MMA Beat. Would you ever want to recreate
I
that?
have that picture of you. We talked at Mayweather Canelo.
That is true.
Many years ago.
Yes. I see that Junkie is doing almost the MMA Beat type thing with John Morgan and my guy Simon Head and a couple others. Do you like that one day for MK? Maybe special situation?
I did like doing the MMA Beat. I mean, towards the end of my run at MMA Fighting, I was really burned out, which is why I ended up making a switch. But I did like doing it. It was one of the funner things I enjoyed for a time. But MK, people are like, oh, you guys should bring on Chuck and then have 3 of you. We won't make time for Chuck. I know we've been saying that forever and it hasn't happened. But honestly, we love Chuck. There's nothing wrong with it. We really want to incorporate him as much as possible. Partly the problem there was the pandemic kind of changed everything for us a little bit. But MK is not MMA Beat. They are 2 very different shows with very different sensibilities. They're trying to accomplish 2 very different things. And the MMA Beat can work under the right circumstances. And I wouldn't mind doing again, Conor versus Mayweather 2. If they announce it and we're live on location, BC, would I want to get together a panel of folks to discuss things? Sure, yes. But in general, dude, this is my priority. This is why I made the switch. This is what I believe in. I don't mind one-offs, but I don't want to go back to that.
Yeah, that's fully understand and respectable. Luke, how long do you believe Dana White is going to continue to run the UFC? Who will replace the Great White? And will his successor continue the, quote, minimum wage to middle class paying system that they still have going on? Yeah, there's a separate question, but let's start there. We've talked about this before. Can you guess an end date for Dana? Do you have any feeling either way?
I'm going to say this, man. I think that as long as he doesn't get senile, listen to what I'm going to say before you cut this, someone takes it out of context, because it's actually kind of a compliment, actually very much a compliment. I think he's going to pull a Bob Arum. Bob Arum is what, 90, something like that? And that dude is sharp as a tack. He does not have any senility. I mean, he's still an old man and he's grumpy, but he's not senile. I don't know if Dana White's going to live to 90 the way that he works, but I think that he's a lifer. I think he's going to be here for a very long time, at least another 10 or 20 years.
I mean, he's showing you already Vince McMahon type qualities, and Vince, he's going to die on the job. Like it's understood that Vince McMahon at age 74 right now is going to die on the job. And that, that might be Dana in the end. Yeah, you're right.
I think that's just how it's going to be. Like, I mean, it would take, and I'm not wishing anything bad on him, but it would take, something like a heart attack or, that disease he has, the Meniere's disease. Something would have to materially worsen. And obviously, I've got my differences with Dana, but I certainly would not wish that upon his life. And
the greats live it, right? Like Jerry Rice was still trying to catch on as a 3rd string Denver Broncos practice squad receiver. And and when he was 43, right? Like the greats will do it as long as they physically and mentally can. And, these aren't sports, these are management positions. So, these guys live it. And yeah, I could see that. I don't know who we've debated before, like could a Chael Sonnen have the right personality, but I think the divide is always, could an ex-fighter be in a spot where they're not pushing the fighter's concern, Yeah.
You see it now. I mean, candidly, I like Daniel Cormier, or even Chael Sonnen. I like them both. And Chael and I have had public disagreements about it. I like them both. But I think that they have matured in a stage in their career where their life reflects their values much more closely to the management more than the fighter. Now, I don't mean to say that they want the fighter to get hurt. I would not agree with that. But do they understand the promoter's position? Are they very sympathetic to it? Yeah, I mean, they're pretty clearly sympathetic to it. for better or for worse. And again, just probably a lot of that I disagree with, but yeah, I don't think that transition is necessarily all that hard, to be honest with you.
Yeah. The second half of the question was for BC. Besides rigorously eating gas station cuisine, what athletic activities do you partake in? Now, look, yes, I'm 42.
And by the way, the person writes hilariously, judo, wrestling.
Actually, I'm a 5th-degree Taekwondo asshole. Luke, I'm a 42-year-old whitewashed dad who's at a career high weight of 231 pounds at the moment. So here's what I do. Pre-quarantine, I play basketball once a week in an over 40 league, not an official league with referees, but it's like a they draft the teams each week in terms of who's going to be there. You play a long 3-game series. You go there knowing what team you're going to be on. You have one sub and you play a long 3-game series up to 15 each game. I love it. I get into fights there, but I get my aggression out and it keeps me alive and well. I always had this idea of, I talked to an old guy who played pickup with me for years. He was like in his 60s. He goes, the key is never take a year off. And that's how you'll play forever. So I'm trying to keep that up, even though I'm getting slowly ineffective. I used to run road races, but not in like a decade. And I haven't boxed since my mid-20s. So, Luke, I think I'm down to really hoops. Oh, I used to play like deck hockey and roller hockey as a goalie, but that was in my 20s too. So I'm really down, Luke, to getting on my Peloton bike, walking the dogs, and playing hoops. That's it. I'm washed and old. You, Luke, do you have any other future? Are you going to get in a, I don't know. What do you do, Luke? Nothing, right? Lift weights. I mean,
I lift weights. Yeah, lifting weights has been a thing I've been doing since I was. I remember the first time. This is true, BC. Like, why do you lift weights? Well, one is I feel better when I do. Like, I've had back problems my whole life, and if I'm steady in the gym and I'm working out my core and blah blah blah, I don't ever have back problems. So for me, it's like I just have a better quality of life if I'm in some kind of decent, muscular shape. But it's true, dude. Like, I moved around a lot as a kid. I was constantly going from school to school to school and blah, blah, blah. And it was hard for me to meet people. The first time I ever really attracted female interest, I was 15 years old because I moved to a town. I didn't know anyone. And my mom got me a gym membership. She was like, you should just go to the gym if you got nothing else to do. So I said, okay. So I just started reading Flex magazine and teaching myself how to lift weights. And I'll never forget, I'll be like second semester, it was the first time women had ever showed, granted, this is also like that puberty changing moment, but it was weird. I was like, out of nowhere, it was like, it just changed my fortunes a little bit. I've had injuries in the gym, but dude, I really feel like this. The weight room has been maybe the best friend I've ever had in my life. It has never really done me wrong. It matured me. It toughened me up. It helped my, again, my physical condition, blah, blah, blah. Like, if you're careful with it and you know how to do it correctly, you can lift weights well into your senior years. So I will be in a weight room the rest of my life. That is just the way it's going to go.
It was all a dream.
I don't know, but
you used to read Flex magazine, right?
Yeah.
Lou Ferrigno up in the limousine.
Like, how did you learn how to lift weights back in the day? This is true. You know how I learned how to lift weights? Listening to my stupid friends who didn't know how to lift weights. Number one, had a bunch of injuries as a consequence. 2, Flex magazine or Muscle and Fitness. And 3, and anyone who's my age, your age will know this, Arnold Schwarzenegger's Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding. That was the trinity. You had friends, you read the magazines that came out every month, and you went to Barnes and Noble or whatever, Books A Million, and you bought the Bible of bodybuilding from Arnold Schwarzenegger. And that's what I did. That's what I did for a long time, dude. And it has always done me right. It's always done me right. So, yeah, the weight room. By the way, and everyone is like, oh, I go to jiu-jitsu to feel better. Motherfucker, what kind of jiu-jitsu are you doing? There were times, dude, where I would leave and be like, you get out all that energy and all that angst and you feel better. You take a cold shower and blah, blah, blah. Like, yes, I would feel better that way. But people are like, oh, it's a gentle art. Dude, it's not gentle. It's a rough-ass sport, and people are fucked up all the time. And here's how you know, dude. I can't tell you how many people I know who had to stop training because of the pandemic, and they're like, my back has never felt better. I haven't felt like my neck like this in years. My wrist works all of a sudden. Like, dude, to this day, if I have to bench anything more than like 80% of 1 rep max, I have to do it with a brace because I got wrist locked by my last instructor once where we were doing grip fighting, and I had gripped his lapel and he took the back of my elbow and then brought it into him. And so my wrist went naturally like that. And he he wrist locked me, and it is to this day, it does not feel right. It doesn't. I dislocated my toe. I had to put it back in by myself. It has never ever healed. I've got neck injuries that never healed. And you go to these gyms, dude, you'll see all these people taping up before practice and fucking with their fingers, and then they'll be like, oh, let's change, go roll with this guy. And he'll be like, dude, my left shoulder doesn't feel good. Can you just, if you get a sub, can you get it on the other side? These people walk in and out zombified and fucked up. I'm not saying there's no cause to train, but this idea that like it'll designed to make you feel better. I never felt better than when I stopped training and then went back to the weight room. I felt way better as a consequence. So it's a fucking lie when they say that.
Wow. Have you ever rolled with E. Casey Leiden?
No.
Great guy, changing his garage, great guy. Love him. Love that guy.
All right, BC. If you could pick an all-star team for the MMA Beat, who would it be?
Now, is this of people that have been on the MMA Beat, or what are we doing here?
I don't know. How do you want to answer it?
Well, I've only been on with Chuck, you, Danny Segura, and Phoenix. That's it. That's my history there. Some would say, Luke, from episode 200 until it ended was the best run of the history of the show. Some would say that. Look, you got to have Chuck, because here's Chuck's brilliance, Luke. I could be the loud, damn blowhard saying ridiculous things. You could be the old bitch curmudgeon, but Chuck's sort of the studious guy who comes with the safe but smart sort of like reverse knife edge chop chinzitsu strike that you're just like, oh man, he framed that perfectly, that bald bastard, right?
Yes. I mean, here's the thing. It's like, if I had to do it again, how would I do it? I don't know, because I was on the first episode of the MMA Beat, and I was on the last one. So the first episode was me, Ariel Helwani, and then Mike Chiappetta, of all people. And by the way, to be clear, the MMA Beat was Ariel's idea. I want everyone to understand that too. I want to give credit where credit is due.
It's like the sports reporters of MMA, right? Which was a great show.
I mean, I honestly think that's what he based it on, and I believe he even made that explicit to me once. But certainly, it was his vision, and I want to be clear about that. So, we had something called the A Team back in the day. It was me, Ariel, Chuck, and Jeff Wagenheim, and that was a very, very strong team.
Yes.
Second era where I had to host after Ariel went to ESPN, it was very different, because not only did Ariel leave, but then there was this mass exodus where, Chuck left, and then Sean left, and then Mark Raimondi moved to the West Coast, and obviously Ariel wasn't there, and then Jeff Wagenheim couldn't come on anymore because he had gone to ESPN. So like everything that I understood the show to be was ripped out from under it, and I had to sort of figure out what was going to be next. But I really enjoyed that time. I thought Danny Segura grew up on that show, and I was glad I got a chance to witness it. I found out the best partnership of my career through that show with you. Chuck was still able to come into the second stage for a time, and he was sensational there. So to me, it's like, could you go back to the A Team? You could do that, but I don't know if I could just honestly. It's like, it's a dodge. It's kind of like, it's just two different teams. It's just two totally different teams.
In the prime of that show, I didn't watch it a lot. Every once in a while, was Ariel more of the traffic cop quarterback, or was he getting dirty?
Yeah.
Like, did you have debates in there with him?
Sure. I mean, he would mix it up a little bit, but he was the host, and he would be the guy to kind of like, what we're gonna. He would be like, how I would make the rundown for us every time. He would make the rundown. I was a little bit more mixing it up than I thought he was, but in general, yeah, we had plenty of debates on that show. Dude, he's like, listen, I've got my differences with the guy, but he did not do a bad job with it. He was very, very good on the show. He was an integral part of it. Again, it's his idea. And I also thought that the fact that he and I disagreed and had different sensibilities actually made the show better in certain ways. Yeah. Because you got a different perspective. So
I mean,
he was strong. He was strong.
You got to give a shout out to the A Team. You got the comedic guy in Wagenheim. You've got the different thinker in Chuck. You got the old contrarian bitch in Luke Thomas. And then you got a quarterback traffic cop in that Canadian fella. So, I mean, look, I don't know. I don't know if that show could ever be recreated, Luke, but,
People hit me up about it all the time. But like I said, dude, I'm really glad I did it. In both iterations, they had their moments, but I've moved on. I've very much moved on. So,
I sat next to Phoenix a bunch. Phoenix is great. I maybe I regret making a couple of those comments next door, but
I mean, you only sexually harassed her 75 different times on air. But
Stop that. Hey, Luke, would would you and I both like to see Kyle Snyder and Abdul Rashid Sadulev in MMA and hopefully the UFC? I know it would take plenty of time for them to work on striking, but I know Snyder has mentioned in the past he wants in. Could see them headline a pay-per-view against each other a few years down the line for the HW title. Your thoughts?
Yeah, big time stars in the wrestling, the amateur wrestling world. Kyle Snyder out of Ohio State, but I think he's actually from Maryland. And big boy too, so he probably wrestle heavy, or I think he would fight, heavyweight, light heavyweight. Oh, it depends on how much you want to cut down. Sanjalaev, I'm not sure exactly where he stands these days, but do you want to see top level wrestling prospects, medal winners, basically, the best in the world do it, and then come over to MMA? I mean, is the answer no, DC? Like, when is the answer to that? No. Like, will it happen? I don't know, but would I like to see it? Yeah, sure.
Okay, I don't have anything to add to that, Luke. Did you see the some dude from wrestling is coming to MMA and he's going to fight Rug? Did you see that?
Oh, you mean Marcus Buchecha Almeida?
Yes,
but that's not wrestling. That's jiu-jitsu.
Sorry, jiu-jitsu. My bad. I like the big Rug guy, but I'm not really. I don't know these people. All right, I'm sorry, Luke. I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, God.
All right. For BC, what is your favorite sporting moment that isn't related to MMA or boxing?
We've kind of had this talk before where I told you I sort of have like a ranking of the top 5 sports moments where you're just like, oh my God, I have no connection to this game, but sports. And my non-team I cared about moment is still Kirk Gibson 88 World Series. And I hated the Dodgers because I'm a Mets fan, and I hated Kirk Gibson because he stole the MVP that year from Darryl Strawberry when his numbers sucked. Go check him out. 88 Kirk Gibson. His numbers sucked. But I get his MVP relation to the team. But dude, that's just so freaking improbable. The A's were so nasty. They're so much better than that Dodgers team. You had Eckersley. I mean, oh God, and Gibson, I mean, the story. It's out of a movie. Luke, that's one of those rare times in sports where you're like, I just watched a freaking movie. Like, I cannot believe this guy who can't even walk just hit the game-winning home run. And I know it wasn't game 7, it was game 1, but it set the tone. Luke, it's a moment. If you put that call on today of Vince Scully, right field, she is gone, I will tear up because it's so freaking ridiculous. That's why I love sports, because of moments like that. I also like Jack Buck's call on the same one. He did the radio version. He said, I don't believe what I just saw. Both legendary guys, great calls. It gives me the feels just thinking about it. Do I have a thing that more involved my team? I was in the crowd at in the 2000 New York Mets when they clinched against the Giants, when Bobby Jones threw that one hitter, and when they clinched against the Cardinals to go to the World Series when Mike Hampton threw the 3-hit shutout. And I was explosively drunk during both, but just great moments with your own team. At the Bobby Jones one-hitter, Luke, to close, I jumped up at the last out when Barry Bonds flied out to right field. And I fell into the row of seats in front of me because I was so overly drunk and excited. And this lady next to me that must have weighed like 400 pounds, she lifted me with her 2 hands out of the row in front of her, Luke, picked me up in her arms and just jumped up and down. And we did like 360 spins celebrating. We'll never forget that moment.
I will say I have a few. More recently, when Real Madrid won the Champions League back to back 3 years in a row, which is, something close to nearly impossible to do. That was fun. That was very fun. When the Caps won the Stanley Cup, I mean, I just can't even tell you what it meant to the city. Set the city on fire. It was, you might even seen it nationally. Groups were by the thousands going downtown and watching giant screens, impromptu. Cops were just trying to scramble to direct traffic because there's just these hordes of people descending onto the downtown area. It was amazing to watch. And after that, so many times they had fucked up when Kuznetsov hit the game winner against the Penguins. That was a huge deal. And of course, they moved
on from there. What year was that, Luke?
This is 2 years ago, so 2017, 2018.
Okay. I get the connection to the city. It's your city. You got it tattooed on your freaking arm dong. Yeah.
Fucking, there you go. So that was big. As a kid growing up, though, I grew up in Georgia when my parents split. So I was not a native Georgian by any stretch of the imagination. But as a kid, I moved there in the 5th grade. And, you just watch what you watch down there. And so I grew up watching the Braves on TBS at the time. And I grew up in the era of Brian Hunter and Otis Nixon and fucking Sid Bream and David Justice and, just all, I mean, I was there for Glavin and Maddox and the just all the years where they had done so well in the regular season, and then they would lose on the postseason every time. But like they would be magic night after night after night. And then in 1995, when they eventually got it done, manager Bobby Cox and then rocking Leo Mazzoni, who was sort of a fixture in the dugout at the time, when they won, that was big, dude, because it was like the Caps. It was so many years of like, it's a great team. It's a legitimately great team with a really supportive fan base. I went to like 2 stadiums ago. I went and saw them at Fulton County before the replacement existed. So,
wow.
yeah. So, and Hank Aaron, Street and Avenue and all that. Like, it was an awesome time. It was an awesome time to be a Braves fan back then. I'm not a Braves fan anymore because I just kind of got away from baseball, and then I moved here, and then the Nats came here, and I'm more loyal to DC than I am to Georgia. But as a 14, 15-year-old kid who've been watching them since I was 11, which is not the longest time, but formative for your sporting years. That was cool. That was really cool.
Two quick points on that. One, do you think Leo Mazzoni possibly had Parkinson's? You just didn't tell anyone? 2, Luke, at that Mets Cardinals game in 2000, the NLCS game 5, I set a National League Championship Series record pre 9/11, bringing 6 cans of Budweiser into the game, sneaking them into my pants and socks. Luke, that record will not be topped for a while. People don't realize post 9/11, you couldn't even get an erection into like a New York baseball game. Like it was just ridiculous.
Yeah, that is pretty good. Was this at Citi Field?
Shea Stadium. Yeah.
Shea Stadium. Sorry. Yeah. Shea Stadium. Yeah. Which was a fucking dump. If ever.
It's our dump. It was our dump though. Okay. Thank you, Luke. To close this grand episode of ridiculousness, if Showtime held a company Christmas party for the MK crew, and you and I drew each other's name for Secret Santa or White Elephant or whatever the hell people call these games, what would we gift one another? And it says, let's say there was no way the other would know who got them the gift.
Okay, but I still have to get you a gift that I think you would like, right?
I guess. I mean, how would you approach this? I mean, look, I've done Secret Santas in offices where I purposely got a ridiculous gift, right?
So if I drew your name, what could I do with that in the public Christmas party? You would reveal it and be horribly embarrassed because
you could embarrass me, right? You could be really nice and be like, I know BC loves that. He loves his vinyl records.
If I was being nice, I couldn't get to Cumberland Farms because that would be too much to ask. But if I was being nice, I would definitely get you some Wawa gift cards. I would definitely do that.
Oh, wow.
Maybe Arby's at this point, which is an Arby's coupon is if I just take a dump in a napkin, that's an Arby's coupon. So you'd be good to go that way. If I wanted to embarrass you, what would I do?
I'd get you hair dye, Luke. Maybe a beard trimmer.
You think that embarrasses me, dude? It's like, how do I explain this? It's like having a disease. Like I can't get rid of it. It just is part of me at this point.
Hey, by the way, Luke, I'm already getting DM'd like crazy of people going, you're a 40-year-old white guy who listens to bad classic rock records, and now you're jumping on me for liking anime. Get your Dragon Ball Z bullshit out of here, all right? Thank you.
Take your Dragon Ball Z and go to your basement with all of your friends, which you don't have, and go fuck yourself. Listen, take a joke, losers. We know that you're nerds and virgins, like Colby has said a million times. You don't have to take it out on us. Again, Israel Adesanya notwithstanding, who is the King of Kings. But everybody else, you can go fuck yourself. What would I do to get you one, like...
Maybe I'll get you this stick in a box, Luke.
I would get you some like Depends or the adult diaper or some kind of thing for incontinence.
What if I got you weightlifting gloves, one with an M on them, the other with a K on them, right? In MK colors? That'd be great.
I don't wear weightlifting gloves are for losers.
How did I know? Weightlifting belts are for motherfuckers who
no, belts are quite essential. Gloves are for delicate little men.
Delicate hands, yeah. All right,
dude. I made this one before. Have you ever put on a weightlifting glove?
Yeah, I used to wear them in high school when I would go to the gym with my dad. All right, they were embarrassing.
Well, you looked like the biggest P word I'd ever seen in my life.
Yes, I was rail thin, Luke.
First of all, why would you not want to make your hands tougher? Also, the more you lift weights appropriately, it will thicken your fingers a little bit.
I didn't want to go. I was being a punk. He dragged me there, beginning with age 15.
The last part is it will actually fuck with your grip. You want to get as much of the grip as you can with your natural hand. It's stronger that way. It will actually impede your grip a little bit, which will impede your lifting, and you just look like a fucking nerd. Take the glove off, keep the belt on if you need it, but the gloves are for little tiny men. That's what that's for. You understand that?
Anyway, Luke, it was great doing this holiday special that people are listening to on Christmas and avoiding their families. Thank you very much for joining
Hey,
me.
BC, if anyone out there and got weightlifting gloves from a family member, go over there and like French, cartoon style, slap them in there with the fucking gloves and then challenge them to a duel. That's what I say.
Luke, Semper Fi, never die, right? Is that how you say it?
Always faithful. That's right.
Okay. Please, people, like this video, subscribe to the great Morning Combat channel. You're going to get more content than you know what to do with, okay? Because if you don't think we're coming, I can't wait. Yeah. That was weird. That was a little bit weird. I regret that. All right, Luke, that's all I got. That's all I got. I got no more party favors, no more tricks.
Merry
Follow
Christmas,
him.
Feliz Navidad, Happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, and everything else. Be safe. Yeah?
If your soul is ever embarking, Luke, I'll follow you into the dark. Okay. Actually, I won't. I'll be out there with the good folks in heaven. Hey, for Luke Thomas, it's BC. For Show Malka and CBS Sports, we love you. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, all that good stuff. 2 words. We out.